What's goody? Yo, we about to watch Food Theory or Doritos, a ripoff. Hey man, I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. Let's get right to the video. Oh wait, right before we start the video, make sure you check out fangoverfang.com. The link will be in the description below. Now let's start the video, baby. Let's get to it, man. What we got?
Don't fall for it again, Matt. Not again. Sure, that bag of Doritos looks like a deal there on the shelf, but you know what's gonna happen. You're gonna open it up, and it'll be 84% air and 16% chip.
That's usually how it is.
Every time. Don't
every
let them
time.
get the better of you with some cheap psychological trick, Matt.
But
Don't
you buy it every time.
Have some willpower. Do not buy
You're gonna buy it again.
Doritos.
You're gonna buy it.
No!
I'd buy it too, brother.
Oh, Matthew, tell me you didn't just eat an
Is that his
entire
girl?
bag of Doritos by yourself.
Relax, Steph. It was 84% air. They all were.
That's pretty funny. Are Doritos really 84% air? Interesting.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Food Theory,
Food
the show that's
Theory.
here to crunch the numbers that matter most to your stomach. Friends,
Okay.
of all the first world problems out there, there are exactly two that I believe should be upgraded to the rank of actual problem. One
What?
being that pizza boxes are too large to fit inside a normal refrigerator, and the
Dude.
other being the outrageous amount of air in.
Hey, bro, I couldn't agree more about pizza box. I literally bought pizza yesterday. No joke. And I was like, bro, now I got to move it to a container because the box can't fit in my fridge. Like, come on.
Inside of chip bags. And yes, it is indeed outrageous. We went ahead and tested it. Busted out
Really?
the water displacement method and everything. We found the average volume of sealed Doritos bags to be 3,274 milliliters. Meanwhile, the
Okay.
average volume of the chips with all the air vacuumed out was just 525 milliliters. That means
Interesting. He actually did water
84%
displacement.
of what is inside that bag is air.
84%.
Wrap your head around that one, friends. That is the equivalent of having a microwave delivered in a refrigerator box.
That's
like, why?
crazy.
Why are chip manufacturers so incredibly wasteful with their packaging? Why on earth would they willingly pay
Right?
for more packaging material than necessary to shoulder the cost of shipping air all across the world? They
Makes
can
no
easily
sense.
ship the same amount of Doritos in a bag, half the volume, so why don't they simply do that? and pay for
Right?
Half as many trucks. Surely there is a reason for this that makes dollars and cents, which leads me to wonder, are chip
Tell us, old Matt Pat, what is the reason, King?
manufacturers using deceptive packaging to trick consumers into paying more for less? Like how
Could
those seemingly
be.
huge chocolate bunnies you get around Easter always wind up being hollow, or how the pepperonis on frozen pizza always seem
got
to
a
be
good
denser
point.
when the packaging is clear. On the other hand, maybe Frito-Lay actually has a good reason for selling us bags filled with mostly air. And if so, I am all ears.
look at you, Matt
Hollow,
Pat.
chocolatey ears. But we need answers, and that's why today Food Theory is rolling up its sleeves, getting its hands dusty, and carrying out an experiment that'll answer this chippy little question once and for all. Are
I love it.
Doritos bags fair, or are they full of hot air? Not to go all clickbait on you, but the answers are actually really surprising. Now, an important thing to note about the
Interesting.
quote-unquote air inside of a Doritos bag is that it's not actually air. It's
What is
truly
it?
nitrogen gas. Now, if that sounds like a dangerous
Why?
substance for your food to bask in, don't worry, it's fine. In fact, 78% of the air filling your lungs at this very moment is nitrogen gas. Oxygen only makes up
Interesting.
about 21% of the air that we breathe. Why fill chip bags with nitrogen gas, you ask? Because chips are actually able to stay fresh longer in an oxygen-free environment. O2 molecules like to create chemical reactions
What?
with all sorts of different partners, and these reactions are a big reason why food tends to go stale. N2 molecules, on the other hand, are more stable.
This is starting to make sense. This is actually starting to make complete sense.
They don't tend to react with other molecules nearly as easily. Plus, aerobic bacteria can't survive without oxygen, so that's
That
a
is
little perk
true.
of the job. Long
That
story
is
short, nitrogen
really
gas
true.
plays a super important role inside your Doritos bag. But still
Okay.
gotta wonder, does there really need to be so much of the gas in there? Sure, chips may need an oxygen-free environment to stay fresh, but why couldn't nitrogen gas fill a smaller bag with the same number of Doritos
Right?
inside? Appropriately sized bags can be oxygen-free too, you know, which brings us to the other Another role that nitrogen gas plays inside our Doritos bag, slack fill. Ever notice how your chip bag is filled almost all the way, but it's never completely inflated and stretched out like a balloon? This is actually by design, and it allows the nitrogen gas to exist as a relaxed cushion around your chips, protecting them from damage during transport. Leaving the bag slightly underfilled prevents the bag from popping too easily, especially when it's traveling at high altitudes where atmospheric pressures diminish. Now, I can definitely understand why you wouldn't want your bag of Doritos to pop before it gets to the store.
Makes complete
also
sense.
Get how a pocket of air could help protect Doritos if something were to impact the bag. But what about if the bag gets shaken? Having empty space surrounding the Doritos seems to fly in the face of everything we know about safety equipment like, I don't know, seat belts, which are designed to keep passengers snug in place so they don't rattle around inside the vehicle during an accident. Maybe I'm just grasping at straws here, but I'm just not convinced that Frito-Lay would inject that much air into their bags just to make sure that
You're
the
onto
chips
something, Matt
For one
Pat.
thing, nitrogen gas doesn't seem to be doing a heck of a great job protecting the chips from breaking. I sent field researcher Luke out to examine 3 dozen 9¼ ounce bags of Nachos Cheesier.
Bro, how much Doritos do you think he ordered just for this video? I'm actually mad curious.
Weighing hundreds of full, unbroken Doritos, we were able to determine that an average Dorito chip weighs 1.81 grams. The contents of a single Doritos bag average 241.5 grams, a bit less than the 262.5 that they claim on the packaging, meaning that our Doritos bags would have held an average of 133 full, unbroken chips when they were prepared at the factory. But by the time they made their journey from the factory to the grocery store and eventually to Luke's house, only 33.1% of the chips managed to stay intact. 67% of all the Doritos we bought were broken by the time that the bag was opened. This means that while a typical Doritos bag leaves the factory with roughly 133 unbroken chips inside,
the rest will be broken.
About 33 of them arrive at the destination fully intact. 100 break along the way. And look, I get that broken Doritos aren't the worst thing in the world. It's not like we're talking about fine china or a PS5 that gets rendered useless when it breaks in half. In my experience, broken Doritos are just as delicious as unbroken Doritos. Still,
that's very true.
67% breaking strikes me as a pretty high casualty rate for a product that supposedly fills its bags with a special gas in order to prevent that very thing from happening. I just can't escape the feeling that at least part of Doritos' goal here is to trick consumers with oversized, deceptive packaging.
I think it is.
We designed an experiment to test whether all that extra airspace in the bag really helps, or if a different amount of gas might actually be more effective at keeping your Doritos intact. We began by gathering every single unbroken Dorito from all 36 Nacho Cheesier bags. It took a while, but luckily there were plenty of broken Doritos available to munch on whenever hunger struck. We then took 133 of those unbroken Doritos chips and sealed them away inside an empty bag. This, theoretically, is how a typical 9¼ ounce Doritos bag begins life in a factory, before any of the Doritos actually gets broken during the transport process. We called this one the average bag, since it was filled with the average number of Doritos.
This is an actual home experiment.
Average bags, each with 133 unbroken Doritos inside, then sealed all 3 bags with 2,749 milliliters of atmospheric air, giving all of the bags the average 3,274 milliliters of total volume and the typical 84% air to 16% Dorito ratio. Yes, we took this way too seriously, but if we don't take it that seriously, who else will? And yes, just so we get everything on the table, we used atmospheric air instead of nitrogen gas. But we decided not to worry about it since keeping the Doritos fresh isn't a concern for this particular experiment. We then prepared a second set of Doritos bags much the same way, except we only put about half the normal number of Doritos inside, 67. We called this set of 3 bags the fewer chips bags since, pretty self-explanatory, they only had 8% Doritos by volume. Finally, we prepared 3 more chips bags, which contained, go figure, more than the usual amount of Doritos inside. Originally, we'd planned to put 266 unbroken Doritos, or twice the average amount inside each of these 3 bags, but we ran into a problem. The chips wouldn't fit. That's right, despite the fact that 266 Doritos takes up way less volume than the bag's capacity of 3,274 milliliters, they were so awkwardly shaped that they simply couldn't all fit inside without being broken first.
Do you think it's mainly because of the awkward shape that the Doritos can't? I mean, it would make more sense that the awkward shape may lead to the factor that there's 84% gas, but that's also wild. very wild
Also,
claim.
our
So I
film
don't
theory
know.
episode on the coins in Scrooge McDuck's money bin for a deeper dive on this exact concept. And why, yes, we do parody the DuckTales theme song in that episode. Thanks for asking. Anyway, in the end, we had to reduce the number of Doritos in our More Chips bags down to 163. That was the absolute maximum number of intact Doritos we were able to fit inside each bag. And to even get that many in, we had to carefully line them up side by side tightly against each other.
And that's probably why.
Ultimately wound up with 20% Doritos by volume, but gotta admit, it was not easy. And honestly, the whole process of refilling the Doritos bags made us realize something really important. 133 unbroken Doritos is basically the maximum number of chips that can fit loosely in a Doritos bag. It was actually pretty tough to get the bag closed with 133 loose chips inside in the first place. We had to shake it down a fair bit to make it work. Sure, there's a lot of airspace inside the bag by the time it travels to the store and makes it to the grocery cart, but that's because a lot of chips have broken by that point. Look at it from the perspective of the worker at the Frito-Lay factory. Every bag they ship out from the factory is probably filled to the brim with perfect unbroken Doritos. So it was at this point in the experiment that we first felt a twinge of guilt about making this episode in the first place. Somewhere in the back of our minds, we began to understand that Doritos wasn't actually trying to trick us with deceptive packaging. They were actually just doing their very best to get the delicious tortilla chips out to the people of the world. Nevertheless, we choked back these sentimental feelings because science doesn't care about your feelings.
Science does not care about your feelings,
Now it was time
baby.
for the fun part. Putting our experimental Doritos bags through a series of tortures. Alright, it was just two tortures. Also, they weren't really tortures. We just kind of recreated the jostling and squeezing a real Doritos bag might encounter during the shipping process. After some trial and error, we developed two tests that, when carried out back to back, inflicted the perfect amount of damage. Since the real-life Doritos bags from the store averaged a breakage rate of 67%, we tweaked our Dorito torture such that they broke approximately 67% of the Doritos in the average bags as well.
How is he getting this so exact?
Pressing. We gently laid a 25-pound or 11.4 kilogram weight on top of each Doritos bag for 10 seconds. This low-impact, high-pressure stress test was designed to assess how well each bag's air cushion protected the Doritos inside. Judging by the amount of crunching we heard from each bag, it's fair to say that the fewer chips bag, which contained the fewest Doritos and the largest air cushion, had fewer Doritos broken during the test than the other fuller bags.
Sounds very
factual. The second torture, I mean highly scientific test, was to drop the bags onto the ground from a height of 8 feet. This sudden high-impact trial was meant to test the seatbelt theory, that Doritos packed tightly into a bag are better protected than loosely packed Doritos. Finally, after all bags were dropped, it was time to open them up and assess the damage. First up were the More Chips bags, and these guys had a rough time under that 25-pound weight. I wasn't expecting a whole lot of Doritos to be intact, and I was certainly right to think that. Of the 163 Doritos we packed inside each More Chips bag, only 33 of the chips made it out unscathed on average, for a breakage rate of nearly 80%. Next, we opened up the average bags. By design, 33.3 chips per bag made it through our Doritos tortures unbroken, for a breakage rate of about 75%. So the average bag clearly outperformed the More Chips bag. Not only was its breakage rate lower, but the average bag actually produced more unbroken chips overall, which is surprising since it had fewer chips to work with. Last but certainly not least, we had ourselves the fewer chip bags. Well, I guess they actually are least since they have the fewest number of chips, but whatever. I still think they're pretty great. Anyway, an average of 14.7 of every 67 chips made it through intact, giving the fewer chips bag a breakage rate of 78.1%.
Wow.
The average bag, patterned after the way Frito-Lay actually fills their bags in real life, performed the best, hands down. Packing more Doritos into the bag resulted in a higher percentage of broken Doritos.
So it looks like Frito-Lay did do their research. So it's not just deceptive packaging. The more you know.
Fewer Doritos into the bag resulted in a higher breakage rate as well. The kicker is that the average bags produced an average of 33.3 unbroken chips per bag, the highest number of intact chips of any of our three competitors, period. So at this point, I'm busting out the couch and the sad music because this YouTuber owes Doritos an apology. Since the dawn of the internet, chip makers have been getting dragged for putting so much air into their chip bags. And I guess
but now we know why.
Yeah, I'll admit it, when I first set out to make this video, I figured it would wind up being a bit of a takedown episode that showed how Doritos packaging is deceptive and doesn't actually help protect the chips. But the numbers are in, and Doritos straight up slapped me down on both fronts. Today's experiment demonstrates that the slack fill approach can't keep most Doritos in the bag from breaking, but the 84% gas to 16% chip ratio does cut down on chip breakage more than other fill ratios.
It does.
So hats off to you, Doritos. I'm sorry that I ever doubted you. And hats off to our sponsor for today's episode.
Hey, I like the fact that this video is not sponsored by Noom. Hey, actually, you can check out fangoverfang.com. That is my sponsor for this video, which is actually me, myself, and I. Check out anime or gym apparel. Anyway, yo, I love the video, and I love how he apologized at the end. Anyway, peace out, y'all.